No one saw this coming. Not the fans in the front row, not the commentators at the desk, and certainly not the woman who had just been tagged into the match. They were more than a team. They were best friends, sisters in steel, fighting side by side against the world. Until one shocking moment changed everything. The WWE Universe couldn't believe their eyes. A gasp, a collective intake of breath from 20,000 people as she attacked her own partner from behind. And in that instant, a championship match became a crime scene. A friendship became a memory. And now everything has changed. This isn't just the story of a pinfall. This is the story of a betrayal and the deafening silence that followed. It was supposed to be their crowning achievement. The main event. The tag team championships held high, glittering under the arena lights. Kira and Maya, known to the world as the Valkyries, were the definition of synergy. They had trained together, risen through the ranks together, and shared every victory and defeat. Tonight was the culmination of that shared dream. Their opponents were down. The crowd was on its feet, a roaring sea of humanity chanting their names. Kira, exhausted but triumphant, crawled to their corner. She reached out her hand, palm up, ready for the final tag, the one that would seal their legacy. Maya locked eyes with her. There was no smile, no fire, just stillness. Kira's smile faltered, confusion clouding her face. "Maya, now!" she yelled over the din. Maya placed her hand on the top rope, slowly, almost thoughtfully. She looked out at the crowd, then at the championship belts resting on the timekeeper's table. She took a deep breath. And then she stepped through the ropes, not to tag, but to stalk. Kira, still on her knees, looked up at her partner, her best friend. "What are you doing?" The question was a whisper, lost in the noise. Maya didn't answer. She simply grabbed Kira by the hair, pulled her to her feet, and delivered her own finishing move. The sound of the impact was sickening. The referee, stunned, just stared, his hand frozen, unsure whether to call for a disqualification or a medic. The Valkyries were finished. For 3 full seconds, the arena ceased to exist. The roar of 20,000 fans vanished, sucked into a vacuum of pure, unadulterated shock. There was no music, no commentary. Just the hum of the overhead lights. People in the front row stood with their hands on their heads, mouths open. A child, dressed in a Valkyrie's t-shirt, burst into tears. The commentators, usually so quick with a catchphrase, were silent. One of them simply removed his headset and placed it on the desk. What could be said? There is no script for this. There is no playbook for watching a dream dissolve live on air. Kira lay motionless on the mat, not from the physical impact, but from the emotional implosion. Her eyes were open, staring blankly at the championship banners and the rafters banners they were supposed to join. Maya stood over her. Her chest rose and fell, not from exertion, but from a strange, cold calm. She looked down at Kira, her expression unreadable. She hadn't just broken a team. She had broken a person. The crowd's shock finally found an outlet, transforming from silence into a unified, thunderous cascade of boos. It was a sound of pure venom, a sound of betrayal felt personally by everyone watching. But Maya didn't flinch. She didn't react. She simply turned, walked to the ropes, and picked up one of the championship belts. She held it high, not in victory, but in ownership. She hadn't won it. She had stolen it. As the show faded to black, the lasting image was not of a champion, but of a thief standing over the ruins of a friendship. The cameras stopped rolling, but the story was just beginning. Backstage, the chaotic energy of a live show froze. Monitors in the gorilla position, the area just behind the curtain showed Maya walking back, belt in hand. Wrestlers, agents, and crew members parted like the Red Sea. No one said a word. No one offered a high five. No one offered a rebuke. They just stared, a mixture of fear and confusion in their eyes. This wasn't part of the show they were told about. This felt different. Maya walked straight past the producers, past the other talent, and into the locker room, the door clicking shut behind her with a dreadful finality. Minutes later, the medical team helped Kira to her feet. The booze had subsided, the arena was emptying, and all that was left was the quiet shuffle of her boots on the ramp. She wasn't crying, not yet. She was in shock, a passenger in her own body. As she was guided through the curtain, a few of her peers rushed over, offering water, a shoulder, words of comfort. But what could they say? "We're sorry? Are you okay?" She couldn't process the questions. She just kept looking around as if expecting to see Maya appear, laughing, telling her it was all an elaborate joke. But the locker room they shared was silent. When a trainer gently tried to check her neck, Kira finally spoke. Her voice was hoarse. Where did she go? The trainer just shook his head. The silence was the answer. The locker room was divided. The friendship was over. And the long, lonely road of healing had just begun. The next 48 hours were a storm of speculation. Social media exploded. Sports news channels, which usually ignored wrestling, led with the clip. A betrayal for the ages. Fans were desperate for an answer. Why? Why then? Why at all? They didn't have to wait long. 2 nights later, on the flagship show, the ring was empty, save for a single stool and a microphone. Maya's new, haunting music hit, and she emerged to a sound she had never heard before, a wall of undiluted hatred. She walked slowly, absorbing it, almost feeding on it. She sat on the stool and waited for the noise to die down. It took 5 minutes. "You all want to know why," she began, her voice ice cold, cutting through the arena. "You chant Kira's name, you wear her shirt, you cry for her. But where were you when I was the one taking the beating? Where were you when I was the one doing the work, only for her to get the pinfall?" The crowd booed louder. "You don't get it, do you? Friendship is a liability. Teamwork is an anchor." She leaned into the microphone. "For 5 years, I carried her. I was the engine, and she was the caboose. I was the talent, and she was the friend." She spat the word like it was poison. "You all loved the Valkyries, but you were blind. You were watching a star being suffocated by dead weight. I didn't betray Kira. I liberated myself. The championship belt? It's just a bonus. The real prize is the spotlight, all of it. On me." For Kira, the world went quiet. While Maya was justifying her actions to the world, Kira was in a dark hotel room, the "Do Not Disturb" sign on the door. Her phone was off. The television was unplugged. She couldn't bear to see the replays, to hear the analysis, to read the comments. Every "I knew it" or "Kira deserved it" felt like another blow. The physical pain in her back was nothing compared to the hollow ache in her chest. This was the woman who was the maid of honor at her sister's wedding. The woman who held her hand when her father was sick. They weren't just partners. They were family. And that's what made the betrayal so complete. It wasn't just a career move. It was an emotional assassination. She replayed the moment over and over, not the attack, but the seconds before. Maya's eyes. The stillness. She realized with dawning horror that this wasn't a spontaneous decision. It was a calculation. Maya had planned this. She had waited for their highest moment, the pinnacle of their shared dream, to destroy it. She wanted to take not just the victory, but the memory of it. Kira finally picked up her phone. There were hundreds of messages, but the one she was looking for, the one from Maya explaining, apologizing, anything ... it wasn't there. There was just a single new voicemail from management. "Kira, we need to talk about your new creative direction." As a singles competitor, the machine was already moving on. She was alone. The corporation, the WWE itself, saw the numbers. The clip of the betrayal had more views in 24 hours than the last pay-per-view. The boos for Maya were louder than the cheers for any hero. And in the cold calculus of sports entertainment, a successful villain is worth more than a struggling hero. So they leaned in. Maya's vibrant, colorful ring gear was replaced with stark black and silver. Her energetic entrance music was swapped for a cold, industrial dirge. She was given bodyguards, not to protect her from the fans, but to project an aura of untouchable arrogance. She was no longer Maya. She was the apex. The media ate it up. She was on talk shows, magazine covers, her cold smirk becoming her trademark. She was brilliant at it. She twisted every memory, reframing their shared history as her personal prison. Kira never won a match, she'd say in an interview. I just let her get the pin. She spoke of friendship as a marketing gimmick they were forced into. She made the audience, and Kira, question everything. Was any of it real? This new persona was a shield. The more the fans hated her, the less she had to feel. The more she played the villain, the more she could justify her actions. She wasn't a bad friend. She was a smart businesswoman. She wasn't a traitor. She was a revolutionary. She had successfully turned the narrative. She wasn't the one who had shattered a friendship. She was the one who had escaped it. We only see what happens inside the 20-by-20 ring. We don't see the phone calls that happen after. Kira's mother, watching her daughter betrayed in front of millions, calling night after night, begging her to quit, to come home. It's not worth it, she'd plead. This world is poisoning you. We don't see Maya's father, a former wrestler himself from a different era, leaving a voicemail. That's not how we do business. That's not the name I gave you. You've brought shame on this family. The division spread. The locker room, once a tight-knit family on the road, became a minefield. Friendships were split. People were forced to choose sides, or worse, to stay neutral, which felt like a betrayal to both. Younger wrestlers who had looked up to the Valkyries as a team were now deeply cynical. If they can't make it, what chance do we have? One was overheard saying. The betrayal sent ripples beyond the ring. It affected their shared charities, their joint business ventures. It affected the agents who had scouted them, who now felt personally responsible. The emotional collateral damage was immeasurable. Maya had thrown a stone into the water, aiming only for Kira, but the waves had swamped boats she didn't even know were there. This is the part of the story that doesn't get a highlight reel. The quiet, unseen cost of ambition. The families, the friends, and the mentors who are left to clean up the mess long after the crowd has gone home. When something shatters, we look back, searching for the cracks we missed. And with this new, ugly context, the history of the Valkyries was rewritten. The fans, the media, everyone became an archaeologist, digging through years of footage. And they found them, the tiny fracture lines. That interview, 2 years ago, where Kira was praised for her charisma, and the camera caught Maya's smile tightening for just a fraction of a second. That match, where Kira tagged herself in to get the winning pin, and Maya's pat on the back seemed just a little too hard. The moments where Maya would do 90% of the work, only for Kira to hit her high-flying finisher to a thunderous ovation. We saw it as teamwork. Maya saw it as theft. Hindsight is a cruel editor. Every laugh they shared now seemed forced. Every hug now seemed like a performance. Had Kira been naive, or had Maya been the world's greatest actress? The truth, as always, was likely somewhere in the middle. The pressure to be the perfect team, the sisters of the division, had been immense. Perhaps it was that very pressure, the pressure to be a we instead of an I, that had been the catalyst. Maya didn't just want to be a champion. She wanted to be the champion. She didn't want to share the spotlight. She wanted to be the spotlight. And we, the fans, had demanded they be a team. Perhaps, in our adoration of their friendship, we had inadvertently helped build the cage that Maya so violently escaped. For 2 months, Kira was gone. She healed, she trained, but most of all, she watched. She watched Maya, the apex, defile the championships they had won together. She watched her mock their friendship, their memories. And the shock finally burned away, leaving behind a cold, hard rage. When her music finally hit, the arena explosion was deafening. She didn't sprint to the ring. She walked with the same deliberate pace Maya had used when she betrayed her. She stood face to face with her former partner, who was holding the championship belt like a shield. Maya smirked. "Look who's back. Come to beg for a spot at my table?" Kira didn't speak. She just looked at Maya, her eyes tracing the face of the stranger in front of her. Finally, she raised the microphone. "This isn't about that," she said, her voice shaking but strong, pointing at the title. "You can keep that. This isn't about a championship. This is about you." The smirk on Maya's face faltered. "You were my family. I loved you. And you destroyed us. For this?" She gestured to the crowd. "For them to hate you? For a piece of metal?" Maya's eyes hardened. "You're still so weak," Maya hissed. "You're still talking about feelings. This is a business." "I made a business decision." Kira shook her head, a single tear rolling down her cheek. "Was it a business decision, or were you just a coward? You weren't strong enough to stand next to me, so you had to wait until my back was turned." The aforementioned slap was heard around the world. The match was set. The main event of WrestleMania. The biggest match of the year. It was everything the company wanted. It was brutal. It was personal. It was a story told in scar tissue and broken promises. After a long, agonizing battle, Kira finally hit her finisher. The referee counted. 1, 2, 3. The crowd erupted. Kira had done it. She had avenged the betrayal. She was the new champion. She held the belt high, crying, the validation washing over her. But as she stood on the turnbuckle, celebrating, the camera focused on Maya, who was slowly, painfully rolling out of the ring. A trainer came to help her, but she waved him off. She limped up the ramp, and just before she disappeared, she turned back. And she was smiling. A small, cold, satisfied smile. Kira saw it, the smile, and her celebration stopped. The crowd's cheers faded in her ears. And in that moment, she understood. Maya's goal was never the championship. She already had that. Her goal was to prove that Kira needed the hate, needed the revenge to be great. She had forced Kira to become as dark and obsessed as she was. Maya didn't want to just beat Kira. She wanted to break her, to remake her in her own cynical image. And as Kira stood there, the heavy gold belt in her hands, she looked less like a winner and more like a survivor. The match was over, but the war for her soul ... she had just lost. The story wasn't about the betrayal, it was about the poison it left behind. And as the show ended, a new pair of rookie friends, laughing and sharing a joke, were shown signing their first contract. The cycle, the narrator implies, is waiting for them too. In the end, a championship is just an object. It can be won and it can be lost, but trust ... Trust is a different thing entirely. Once it's broken, it never truly heals. It just leaves scars, reminding you of the person who used to be there. And in the world of gods and monsters, the brightest spotlight often casts the darkest and most terrible shadow.